Hello strategy gamers and happy new year. 2023 is done and dusted. I've announced my 2023 strategy game of the year and now it's time to look at what's coming on the horizon in 2024. In this video I'm going to be running through games that are releasing this year. I'll be focusing mainly on full releases except for one or two exceptions. There are a ton of smaller indie strategy games, so my list will be focusing on the big games and the slightly more obscure ones just to shake things up. Stuff that I'm interested in. Speaking of obscure, have you ever heard of the Dominions games? Cause there's been 6 of them. For good reason. Dominion 6 is the follow-up to a very well received and niche series that has a pretty hardcore following. Those who know knows. Graphically it ain't much, and that to many outside observers might seem surprising that we've had 6 of these and they haven't updated the graphics so much. No, people play these because of the depth and the fun strategic battles in Dominion 6. You take on the role of a god and wage war over a fantasy realm to be the ultimate god. I personally have not really gotten into the Dominion games much. Maybe the 6th one, the charm? Solium Infernum, maybe a small title, but for those that are familiar with the name Vic Davies, that's all 100 of you I suppose. We'll be waiting for this with bated breath. Vic Davies was a board game designer and back in 2009 he released Solium Infernum, which, get this, was made using Flash. Yes. That's the tech that back in my day made the internet felt flashier. Anyway, the point is the new modern Solium Infernum is a pretty close remake of that game with a fresh coat of paint and more modern niceties. In this turn-based strategic game you play as one of the Prince of Hell vying for control over the underworld. It's not so much about battles, but you use intrigue, subterfuge to get the upper hand against other mischievous evil princes. Solium Infernum has a demo you can try. This is still a very board gamey feeling game, so if you like something like that, give this one a shot. Nominee for the game that most probably will get delayed again. Life by You is a Sims-like. Yes, it's a game where you control the life of these digital people. It's got some interesting options when it comes to developing your Sims. This is a game made by a new Paradox studio by Rod Humble. That's the dude who led Sims 2 during the EA Maxis era. So he knows how to make a Sims-like. In fact, he made The Sims. So it was supposed to be out last year, but look, these trailers can't hide it. It looked pretty rough and they did the right thing to delay it to March 2024, but to be honest, I still feel it looks kinda rough. I hope Paradox doesn't do another City Skylines 2 and release the game despite its rough state, and then state that they had no choice but to release it. There is always a choice. Except when it comes to liking this video and subscribing to this humble channel. There is no choice in this since all who like this video will be granted extraordinary luck in 2024. Don't say I didn't tell you guys. And better yet, for the subs you will get my eternal gratitude. Thank you friends. What I'm more excited for in 2024 than all of these games here is making more awesome videos on strategy games for you fine folks. So kudos to you. Let's continue. Okay, our big heavy hitter, the sequel to one of the most iconic space RTS to ever exist. Homeworld looks the part. It's probably going to push the limits of my PC. But beyond the 3D space of Homeworld, Homeworld 3's big additions are terrains. Yes, terrains in space, because they are adding these massive derelict ships or pieces of old construction which can act as cover, which means it's time to plan an ambush. The whole line of sight thing is given a whole new meaning in a space game, which traditionally is, well, space has no place for you to hide in. That's really awesome. Can't wait to see what they do with the story. I think Manor Lords is in the running for the most anticipated strategy game on Steam. This and Homeworld 3. and it's finally coming out. Even though in early access, I can tell this is going to be massive. Manor Lords is a mix between a medieval city builder and real-time combat, think Total War except without the strategic map. It's mainly led by just one dude, and unlike your big game corporations, you can expect Manor Lords to take risks. If this takes off in a big way, I have no doubt Manor Lords will set the precedent for a lot of strategy games for small indie devs. This could quite possibly raise the bar. A turn-based strategy game that I guess could be described as Heroes of Might and Magic Allied, Songs of Conquest has been in early access since 2023 and is slated to get a full release in Q1 of 2024. It's got a rather unique pixel art aesthetic, and gameplay wise it has a single player campaign with your typical medieval-esque story. The battles are actually a lot more like a puzzle than a turn-based tactics game. High ground gives a massive advantage. In fact, it's the only way to defeat some pretty difficult engagements, at least in my limited time playing it in early access. It's not going to be a regular one to play for me, but something I'll pop in for a session or two for a short burst of gaming. Not to be confused with the previous game, Songs of Silence is a different game altogether with a different developer. This game looks real pretty. It has a rather unique aesthetic, very golden in color, and the art style reminds me of Civ 5. It's a simple strategy game that's very accessible. It has turn-based strategic map where you play through the story, and the battles are basically auto battler with cards. You play as special powers. While I like the look of it, I'm uncertain if its simplicity would play against it and it might get boring after a while. And that's mainly my issue with most auto battlers. It remains to be seen if the game is able to craft an engaging and fun campaign around these mechanics. Okay, now we get to the games without a definite release date, but we know are supposed to come out sometime in 2024. I'm sure many of you are hugely anticipating this one. 11-bit Studios' follow-up to the brilliant survival city builder is amping things up with, I suppose, a rowdier crowd of people. Frostpunk 2 is set in the future, will be bigger as the city expands further. It seems like the focus will be more on setting the direction of your dystopian city, or will it be utopian? We can definitely expect to learn more about Frostpunk 2 this year, and maybe a release date later on. Not to be outshined by Homeworld, Ironclad Entertainment's sequel to their hit 4X space RTS Sins of a Solar Empire is currently in early access on the Epic Game Store. I guess they're calling it a technical preview. They haven't announced a full release date for it, but I'm putting this as a wild card. It might be out in 2024 or not. I've been a massive fan of Sins of a Solar Empire, and beyond an engine upgrade, one thing that's different are orbiting planets, which can potentially lead to new strategies or problems. Haven't played this one, but definitely planning to check it out maybe a little later this year. The game that we've been seeing for quite a while now and just recently received a gameplay trailer, Ara History Untold, is quite possibly the best looking 4X strategy game I have ever seen. It seems to be taking a lot of inspiration from city builders with sprawling cities that grow beyond just a single city node, a very different approach from Civ. There's also more complex crafting system beyond just collecting resources on the map. You'll be turning those into goods or tools. Interesting stuff. Hope to see more of Ara in 2024 and maybe a release of some sort. It seems like 2024 could well be the year for Civ-like games to finally be a real contender to the civilization throne. One humankind totally missed out on though. But Millenia is a big deal because it's the first 4X Paradox Interactive are putting their name behind it, at least as a publisher. But it seems to be pushing those buttons grand strategy fans love with lots of numbers and depth. There's some interesting things about some really wild ways you could affect Earth, almost steering it to an alternate universe. These what if scenarios could lead your civilization down the path of a steampunk world. Really interesting stuff. There's more depth in the economy as well. Like the previous game, Ara History Untold, resources can be turned to more complex goods and something a little Hearts of Iron inspired, dare I say, with national spirits, defining whether you will be a nation of explorers, warriors and such. It was mentioned that this is targeted for a release this year, but not really set in stone. I just hope Paradox doesn't rush this one out. This one could be special. Man of War was on my upcoming 2023 strategy games list, but it looks like it slipped a bit with a significant delay. The developers want more time to polish the game to deliver a bug-free experience, and surprisingly they haven't committed to a more definite release date other than a 2024 release. Man of War 2 doesn't mess with the previous formula much. It's pretty much Man of War with improved graphics, more units which you can directly control, which was a big thing in the first game. Hopefully this game does what Company of Heroes 3 couldn't do and make World War II RTS back in fashion. I played the demo for Tempest Rising this year, and it's basically a Command & Conquer done by people who are not EA or Westwood, the people who made the classics. It's a pretty competent and polished experience. However, there is very little we know about the campaign and whether Tempest Rising will have a healthy multiplayer community around it. Visually, it looks pretty incredible, and if they can make a fun campaign with competent AI, this could be really good. I'm still cautiously optimistic about this one. It's taken quite a long time since development. This is a big one. Developed by former Blizzard devs, Stormgate is built as a competitive RTS, very much in the veins of a StarCraft, with 3 asymmetric factions. Did I say fashions? I mean factions, which is kinda similar to StarCraft, but also not really. Like the Infernal faction has creep, which is called Shroud, but it's not really exactly like the Zerg creep. It buffs infernal units with a second health bar. It's more like a field of magic that strengthens units inside of them. Units that I presume will be less tankier than the other factions. So far they've revealed 2 factions. One is like a human, almost mech using faction, and then we have these demon spawns, I guess. They're called Infernals. Stormgate will be free to play, and it's probably going to be very scalable, which means it should run well on a lot of machines. So I expect a lot of people to jump into this one once it goes into open beta sometime in 2024. Well, if we don't get a StarCraft 3, Stormgate is here to fill the void. One look at Republic of Pirates, and I wouldn't blame you for going, this is like Anno. And to some extent it is. It's got over 100 different buildings, you create production chains to build more complex products. That all sounds very Anno-like, yes. But you're running a pirate utopia here, so there are also real-time ship battles. Upgrade your fleet with better ships and make your pirates better. I'm not sure if adding that little pirate wrinkle will be enough to make this one stand out, but we'll have to wait and see. We've seen city builders about building a village on the back of a giant creature in the Wandering Village, but have you seen a city builder that's on the back of a giant space whale? Yes, I said space whale because Beyond These Stars is taking city builders literally into space. The ecosystem on this space whale is rather fragile, and you'll need to find a balance between making the entire thing habitable without risking shrinking the habitable space. And as you travel in space, you'll have the opportunity to set up outposts in nearby planets, while the space whale hangs around there for a bit. This is important to get those hard to find resources to build more advanced stuff on your main colony. While I can't really say this is an original idea now, it does seem to have some differences with the Wandering Village beyond just the space theme. Probably will check this one out. There's not been a Roman era city builder that has rivaled the mighty Caesar tree, and I don't think Nova Roma will be in the same way, cause it's not really like Caesar tree, but it will probably have more in common with that small little medieval city builder, Kingdoms and Castles, since it is being developed by the same folks that made that game. So the question is Nova Roma just kingdoms and castles in a Roman veneer? Beyond the city building, there's some elements of gods and natural disasters in this game that will put more of a challenge to players. I enjoyed kingdoms and castles, so I'll be checking this one out. Strong planetary annihilation vibes, this one. Fragile existence takes 4x into a massive real-time space. Earth is gone and you need to survive with the last fleet you have. You will have to extract resources from the planets you encounter and defend yourself. It looks kinda epic and hopefully it plays flawlessly rather than a cumbersome beast of a game that will require you having 10 eyes and 10 limbs. But a promising concept nevertheless. Workers and Resources Soviet Republic was an instant hit when it was first released in early access, mainly because it takes a slightly different perspective on city building. It's the ultimate micromanager's dream come true. This is a city builder where you dictate every little production chain you decide to have in your city, and prices and costs of building buildings depend on a market rate. You'll need to build construction officers and hire builders to build stuff. They don't just simply magically appear. Yeah, it's a pretty detailed city builder that's not for those looking for an easy and chill experience. They've not really announced a 2024 release date, but it is somewhat coming close to its finish line. We'll have to wait for an official announcement. I played my fair share of grand strategy, but I don't think I have ever played anything about espionage and spies, and for that, Espiocracy deserves to be on this list. The Cold War is still in full-fledged and it is your duty to keep tabs with the enemy and come out on tops of the intelligence war. It's a spreadsheet management type of game, but what stories can the game throw at you? What alternate history can happen? How open-ended is the game? I'm not sure exactly. Hope we get a demo before launch to give this one a try. I've been a huge fan of the creepypasta internet tales of the SCP Foundation and all the different games spawned from it. Watching my favorite horror YouTuber play these games have been almost like a ritual for me at night, every single night. So I'm adding this to my list simply because it's an SCP based strategy game. SCP The Expedition is a turn-based tactical strategy game that should be coming out in early access this year. I admit what they've shown looks a bit rough, but if it does the SCP lore well, it could have its charm. I've never been a fan of SCP games that are centered more on the soldiers and militia. For me, an SCP game should be more about those weird creepy monsters. So it remains to be seen if this one will have the same horror vibe as a classic SCP game. So in 2023 we had the phenomenal Jagged Alliance 3, which was a great modern sequel to an old classic. And I wonder if Commandos Origins can do the same thing for Commandos games, which were super difficult real-time tactics games set in World War II. Commandos Origins will feature 6 specialized commandos and more than 10 missions ranging from the Arctic to Africa. Still set in World War II era, this time you can play the mission in co-op with a friend. Only 2 co-op player by the way, but I can foresee this being a great co-op game. The Commandos games weren't really complex games, but what made them special are the levels you play on and the different ways you can complete your objectives. If Commandos Origins has these highly interactive levels, I think this could be a good sequel. Realistic military sim fans, this might be the strategy game for you. Broken Arrow has some insane details for realistic cityscapes that will be torn to shreds as the battle rages on, to detailed vehicles with doors that open, and all those tiny little things. It has 5v5 multiplayer and also a campaign, not typically like an RTS where you can call in like lots of units, but more like real-time tactics game with a few units and a huge massive map. They've had a demo of these previously during the Steam Next Fest, but I kinda missed that. Hopefully we'll get another one so that I could check it out and maybe make a video about it. So there you have it. These are not all the strategy games of course coming out in 2024, but what I thought are the interesting and big ones that I'm interested in. Tell me in the comments, what strategy games are you looking forward to this year? Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.